Well, given all the bears that are here in shirt form and in, stuffed animal form, this is going to be a video that involves bears. This is actually going to be the review for Brother Bear, for the Disney movie. Um, uh, I do very much love Brother Bear. I think it's a very good Disney movie that they made in regards to, like, there was this time frame in the early 2000s where, unfortunately, like, they had Lilo and Stitch, and that was a huge hit for them, but unfortunately, um, Atlantis, The Lost Empire, unfortunately, wasn't all that big of a hit for them. Um, Treasure Planet, as amazing as it was, unfortunately, wasn't that good of a hit. I mean, like, I think they made back their earnings, their cost, but they just weren't as popular to a degree. And Treasure Planet was gonna have a sequel, but that got canceled, and Atlantis: Lost Empire ended up getting, they were gonna do a series, but then they just took that and turned that into the sequel. And then we have Brother Bear. Lilo and Stitch got, the however many movies and the however many franchise series and everything, and that was fine. But then we have Brother Bear, which is another way of taking a different look at the shape of a family. And that's what I liked about it a lot when I was a kid. It's different ways of dealing with death. It's different ways of dealing with, like, shapes of a family, as I said. And also just one of those movies that goes with, man's relationship to nature. Bambi kind of did this to a degree. Lion King does it a little bit, but man is not a part of Lion King. Um, and so what they did with Brother Bear is, so it came out in 2003 is when the original one came out. The film is set in post-Ice Age Alaska, where we have, these local tribesmen and everything. Believe that creatures are created that all creatures, humans, animals, everything are all created by spirit, said to appear in the form of the aurora, so the aurora borealis, that would have been very prominent in the sky. And the movie is actually told from the perspective of a very old man, who seems to be kind of the storyteller or the shaman to a degree of his people, because he's telling the story to a bunch of children. And he's, telling them the story, and he said, "This is the story of my three brothers, my two brothers and I." And Kenai, who is the youngest, Denahi, who is the middle, and then Sitka, who is the oldest. And it was it's the story of these three brothers, and kind of four brothers. And if you've seen Brother Bear, you know where I'm going with this, but you have the three brothers. And it's they're off. It's supposed to be that it's Kenai's big day. It's where he's gonna get, like, his totem, which is gonna be this symbol of his spirit animal type thing. Now there is a difference. I'm assuming now there is kind of a difference between, like, zodiac and totem, because, like, a zodiac is kind of, like, based on, like, when you were born. I was born in 1992, so the Chinese zodiac, I'm the year of the monkey. In regards to, the yearly, the month zodiac, I am a Taurus because I was born in late April. And in regards to, since I'm doing this after I got back from the Nebraska trip, in regards to one of the Native American zodiacs that we saw, I qualify as a beaver in that time frame. Okay. For that specific zodiac. And then, there's, like, all these other zodiac signs that come into play and everything. And, different cultures have their own zodiacs, their own animals that represent different things. And then there was totems. And, totems are a little bit more of, like, yeah, you have, like, this stuff based on, like, when you were born and everything, but these animals more represent something that represents, like, a core feature of you. Like Sitka states at one point that, like, his is, like, the eagle of guidance. And then, Denahi has, like, the wolf of wisdom. So, it's, so we get those, different aspects, ones that represent beauty, ones that represent patience, ones that represent strength, all this other stuff that gets mentioned in it. I had debated about, like, seeing if I could find, like, what would have been, like, my totem in this case. But I didn't. I mean, like I have, animals that that kind of I associate with a bit. Like I have, my bunnies and everything that I tend to associate with. I also tend to identify with butterflies to a degree. But that doesn't mean that they're necessarily my totem. Yeah. But so we get to see the three brothers running around. It's gonna be Kenai's big day where he's gonna get his totem. And we see during the first sequence, which is Great Spirits, is the first song, sung amazingly by Tina Turner. And it's, so we get to see all these beautiful landscapes depicted of, like, the post Ice Age Alaska at the time. We get to see mammoths, we get to see the icebergs that are there, the glaciers. We get to see, we see some orcas at one point. We get to see all these different, these different landscapes and everything, and we get to see Kenai and Denahi and Sitka being brothers and bonding, and just, we get to see a good glimpse into this relationship that they have. We also get to see flashes of this older woman who's on her way up to speak with the Great Spirit. She is the shaman or the Shaw woman or the wise woman or the leader or whatever of their village. Her name is Tanana, and she's going up to the top of the mountain where the lights touch the earth, as one of the contact places between like them and the Great Spirits. And they make, she makes her way up there, and she, is getting a totem to take down to, give to Kenai, because the Great Spirits know what Kenai's totem is supposed to be. And, so we see the brothers, and Kenai keeps getting into trouble. He, makes a bunch of caribou stampede. He, tries riding a mammoth and causing more problems that way. Just like all this stuff. And their job is to go out and catch fish to take back for them to, eat after the celebration. They then make their way back to the village, where Kenai is, bragging to the kids that are there. It's like, maybe I'll get, like, this animal for my bravery, or this animal for strength, or, like, all this other stuff. And, Denahi is like, maybe you're going to get one for, a mammoth because of your big fat head. And, just, remember to, and like Denahi keeps saying, no matter what your totem is, you're always going to be our little brother, our baby brother type of a thing. And, it's this concept of, no matter how old you get, no matter what you do, you're still my little brother. I'm still, I'm still I'm still older than you. I'm still your big brother. And, so they head off to go to the celebration. And unfortunately, Kenai did not tie up this giant basket of fish. And they're supposed to tie it up in a certain way so that way bears can't get at it. And so he ties it up, but it doesn't work, and it falls to the ground, and he runs off to go to the ceremony because he's not paying attention to what he should be doing, not taking his responsibility seriously. We get to the ceremony, and it's Tanana is there, and she does like this whole speech and everything, and we get to see all the tribesmen and everything. And I don't know 100%. I don't know very much about it, Inuit culture and everything. I know that they were, if I remember correctly, some tribes were a bit more nomadic, where they would, roam around a bit more and not really have set places to live. Other tribes were more stationary and such. And, they very much lived off the land, used as much as what they caught as they could, wanted to make sure that they could live off the land as well as they could and live in harmony with it to a degree. They would still hunt and fish and such like that, but they didn't want to overhunt or overfish or do something that would throw throw nature out of alignment, out of balance, and for the most part. And Tanana gives Kenai his totem, and it's the bear totem of love. And Kenai is just like, I think that's the wrong totem. That can't be right. I am not a bear. And he's like, does anybody want to trade? And Tanana just like grabs him. She's just like, no trades. He like grabs him like, no, we don't trade here. You don't trade totems. And she's trying to, it's like the spirits see this, this capacity for great love in you. And, he's just so angry about this and everything. And, but she's also like, and, when you've proven that you know how to embrace your totem and everything and you become a man, then you'll be able to put your handprint up on this wall. And we see this giant wall in this cave, or this alcove ledge area where they are, that has all of these different handprints all over it that are like from the past, current members of the tribe that are all grown up. And, Denahi and Sitka have like handprints up there probably, and there's like other ones that have their handprints up there. And it's not just like men; it's also the women. I don't know 100% if women were, exactly equal in Inuit tribes, but they were. If they weren't exactly equal, they were almost exactly equal. In regards to that, I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, and if you are someone who knows more about this than I do, then please, comment or whatever. Um, but yeah, please comment, because I would like to know if I was wrong. Nicely comment. Um, but Kenai is very angry about this, and after the celebration, he kind of storms off and everything, and he is getting made fun of by Denahi, who makes like this wreath of flowers and throws it at him, and then like he's, Denahi kind of makes a fool of himself by, there's this dog and the dog almost bites him, and then there's pretty girls, and he gets distracted by the pretty girls, and then he almost gets bit by the dog again. And then, Sitka's like, when Tanana gave me my totem of the eagle of guidance, I thought that it was wrong too. That doesn't always mean that that's what you go for. I would put it a little bit like with Harry Potter, where you have the different Hogwarts houses, and how you can have aspects of all the different houses, but there's like one that kind of like goes above all else, which I'm like, okay. I mean, Hufflepuff here, but still. But like, they work Sitka, or Kenai then sees that the basket is gone because it got, there's the fish is gone, and the bear ate the fish, so did not, Kenai runs off after the bear to, because he's like, stupid bear, they're not lovable, they're not kind, they're thieves, and he goes after the bear and everything. And the other, Denahi and Sitka follow him, and they end up getting caught on part of this like glacier, and Sitka is kind of holding the bear off, and Kenai is running over to try to save Denahi from falling down this ravine. And then, in order to prevent Denahi and Kenai from getting hurt, Sitka takes his spear and he jabs it into part of the glacier, and I don't know if he like twists it or whatever, but he does something to make like this giant crack appear, and it not just drops him, but also the bear into the river below. Unfortunately, Sitka does not make it out, but the bear does. And then we have Sitka's funeral. And after the funeral, Kenai is just like, no, I'm going to go after him. I'm going to find that bear, and I'm going to kill it because it killed my brother. It took my brother away from me. And, he's getting ready to chase after the bear, and Denahi tries to talk him out of it. He's like, no, no, it's not that. And I don't blame the bear for what happened. Denahi kind of at that time was like supposedly blaming Kenai. And he tries to go after his brother to try to stop him. Kenai finds the bear, and there's like this big fight sequence again between him and the bear. And he stabs the bear with his spear. And then we get the transformation song, which is, I think, just more of this beautiful choir of it's like native singing, because I don't remember exactly like who's singing it, but it's like a choir of native women, like Inuit women, I think, singing or so, and it's beautifully done. I'll mention this later again, but like most of the music in this movie the songs were mostly written by Phil Collins again, who did the music for Tarzan. But we get this transformation sequence, and the spirits, come pouring down around Kenai, and then they, Sitka's spirit appears in the form of a bald eagle, because that's his totem, and he picks Kenai up, and then he transforms Kenai into a bear. And because the bear is dead now because of Kenai. And Denahi arrives, and he sees this bear wandering off, and he sees like what looked like Kenai's clothes on the ground, shredded and everything. And Denahi decides that this bear has to be responsible for his brother's death again, so it's the cycle. And he decides to take revenge on the bear for Kenai, even though he wasn't going to go after the bear before for taking Sitka away, or for what happened with Sitka. But now it's like, okay, Denahi kind of snaps. So he's going to chase after this bear. Kenai wakes up the next day. And one of the things that they did with the movie is that, and I noticed this more when I'd forgotten that they did this, but I noticed it more when I was looking up screenshots for the movie, is that when it goes from when Kenai becomes a bear, the next morning when he wakes up, it goes to like, widescreen vision. It's not just like it's not the full screen, it's widescreen now or so. So he's like, it's like his vision has opened up more to a degree, or has the potential to open up more, is kind of what they're representing. And he falls into the river, and he gets swept away by the rapids, and then he wakes up the next morning, and he is, greeted by Tanana. And she's like, oh yeah, no. The spirits did this. They turned you into a bear. I don't speak bear, but you have to find the mountain where the lights touch the earth, and, take it up with Sitka and ask him to turn you back into a bear. And, so we get this moment where it's like, and then we have the moment where, like, Kenai starts freaking out when he's like, oh my god, I'm a bear. I'm a bear. This is not right. Why am I a bear? And he's just, like, freaking out and everything. And, like, Tanana takes off her boot and, like, throws it at his head to make him stop. And then, so then Kenai has to then, work on traveling toward, the mountain where the lights touch the earth, where the aurora is. And he, starts interacting with a bunch of these different animals. He interacts with, like, 2 chipmunks that get scared. And then he meets these 2 moose, Rut and Took. Yeah. And, they're brothers. They're very interesting. They're kind of more like the comedy relief to a degree for the film. And he's like, no, I'm not a bear. I'm a man. And like, they're just like, oh yeah, sure. You're not a bear. You were a beaver before that, or a squirrel, or like, they're making fun of him. And then, Kenai goes off, and he gets caught in a hunter's trap. And he gets interacts with this cub, Koda, who is very, 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 very chatty and talkative and everything, and it's very entertaining to watch. Like, Kenai is currently hanging from, like, it's one of those, like, leg traps where, like, the rope triggers and wraps around your leg, and then you get pulled up into the air, and so, like, he's hanging from this trap upside down, and like him and Koda are talking, and Koda's just like, well, I can help you get down from there. And eventually Kenai has to roulette, and Koda does help him. And then they end up spending the night. Well, first they kind of get attacked by Denahi, because Denahi shows up, and Koda, or Kenai, of course, recognizes that it's his brother, but Denahi is not doesn't recognize him because he's a bear. Also, Denahi is still kind of, blinded by rage. But Kenai and Koda manage to escape, and they hide in this glacier cave to a degree, and that's where they spend the night. And, Koda and Kenai have decided to travel together via other things, because Kenai is just like, fine, you know how to get to the lights? Okay, yeah, fine, I'll travel with you. And then, the next morning they keep traveling and everything. And then, and this is where we get the, Koda mentions that his mother's missing, and that he's trying to get to this salmon run. And like, that has to be where his mom's going, and that's where I'm going. And, where the lights touch the mountain is like right next door and everything. And we watch it all the time. So, once we get to the salmon run, then you can make your way there. And, so Kenai's very, it's like, okay, yeah, I'll travel with you. You take me to the salmon run. I can get to get to that from there. Get to the mountain from there. They end up, then we get the On My Way sequence, which is just kind of this very fun travel song. Brother Bear is actually one of the movies where it's like the characters are not actually singing. Koda sings like a tiny little bit at the beginning of On My Way, and then like a tiny little snippet at the end, like the last line or so. But it's not really like it's not like it is a musical in the fact that there are songs that are being sung, but they're not being sung by the characters. And they're making their way, and we get this great travel sequence where we see like them interacting with these other animals, and then like Kenai getting put into different predicaments by Koda. And then like he gets covered in flowers at one point, and he has to Koda likes to talk so much, and he keeps telling Kenai all these different stories and everything about like, oh, my friend did this, and then there was this, and then there was that, and then we did this, and then there was all this other stuff. And Kenai gets, annoyed with him at various points in time throughout the course of the trip. And then they interact with the moose again, and the moose are like, there's this hunter chasing after us, so we figured if we stay with the bear, if the hunter shows up again, the bear can eat him. And then Kenai's like, okay, well, we need a better way of traveling and to make time. So they ride mammoths. And they're riding on the backs of these mammoths, and like the Kenai's on one, Koda's on the other, and then there's like the two moose are on one, and then like they gather up all these other little animals to like ride on the mammoths with them. So it's just this moment where it's like, what the frick is going on now? And so they travel that way, and then we have this scene at night where we see like the lights in the sky and everything, and Koda says, well, like he explains that, oh yeah, he knows about the lights in the sky and the spirits and everything. And Koda and Kenai is very surprised about this because he keeps saying, oh, it's like, oh, you can't find your way out of this trap. This is a human trap. You're not smart enough to figure this out, or oh, you're not smart enough to do this, or oh, you're just a bear, or things like that. And so he's like slightly befuddled and impressed that Koda understands what the lights are. And Koda says, well, my grandma's up there and my grandpa's up there and everything. And, Kenai's like, I have a brother up there. And this makes Koda very sad because he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And they end up coming, well, it's basically Koda asks, well, how did he die? And Kenai's like, he was killed by a monster. And, Koda then, says, into the spirit, toward the lights in the sky, he's like, thank you for sending me Kenai type thing. And, so then, they curl up and they sleep. And then, the next morning they, get off the mammoths and they head off, and they end up coming across this other mural, these other cave paintings. And, Koda is like very hesitant because he sees like this picture of like a huntsman fighting a bear. And he's like, those monsters are really scary. And Kenai is, of course, looking at this thinking, oh yeah, the bears are scary, but he realized that, Koda's like, they have those sticks and they just come after us and everything. And Kenai's like, he's seeing this from Koda's perspective of, yeah, I guess us humans going after them is kind of not fun. Does make us seem like the monsters. And they keep traveling a little bit more, and then they have to travel across like this volcanic type area, and Denahi chases after them, and they end up escaping from him, and they make their way to the salmon run. And once they're at the salmon run, they meet this very big, the leader bear, who is called Tug. And he's this huge grizzly bear. And then we get Kenai is very odd compared to the other bears. And Koda lists all the stuff that like Kenai did. And the other bears are like, well, that's very odd. You're very different. Where are you from? And everything. It's like they all know each other. And, they end up this is where we get like the welcome sequence, because Kenai's like, well, I don't belong here, and it's like, that's not true. Every bear belongs at the salmon run. And like, so we get this welcome song, which is, family, and all this other stuff, just like everybody being around each other, and like Kenai and Koda are like trying to catch fish all over the place, and Kenai keeps causing some problems everywhere. We get flashes of like all these other bears, like mama bears and their cubs, and like these cubs that are friends playing together. We see like this older bear who's supposedly said goodbye to her mate in the past year to a degree. We see this this young couple bears that they're very much newly in love and everything, and just all this other stuff that's going on around them. And so we get to see a lot of that, and Kenai is slowly feeling more and more welcome, and he's just like, they're not that different from us, from from my tribe, from my people. They love and they laugh, and they get scared and they get sad, and he's just like, they're not that different from us. And so he's he's kind of having this revelation, and then him and Koda catch this like giant salmon, and then we cut to, there's apparently like this kind of a story time, back and forth story time that they do in the movie, or that the bears do. And what ends up happening is like they're all passing this tossing this piece of salmon around, and like telling these stories and everything, and it's whoever catches it gets to go next. And like like Tug is like, I got I finally knocked down that tree that was outside of my cave, and now I got a bunch of chipmunks living with me. And then like it's like the the one that's the old the old widow bear like gets it. She's like, I lost my anger this year. And then we hear like the back of, woman, will you please stop telling everybody I'm dead? Sometimes I can still hear his voice. You can't hear my voice in the background. And like we have the two young bears that are just like, oh my God, I found the most amazing. No, I found the most amazing, the most gorgeous. No, you're gorgeous. Just like back and forth with them, and it's hilarious. Like with the two bears. And then like Kenai gets the salmon, and like he goes, the most interesting thing that happened to me this year, I went on the longest, most difficult, most trying journey to get here because of this very annoying little bear. And like Koda's just like, Aw. And then Kenai's like, but what do you expect from a little brother? So it's just like, it's like, okay, yeah, no, he's more, because like the moose kept calling Koda Kenai's little brother, and he's just kind of not, yeah, he's my little brother type of a thing. And then Koda gets the salmon, and he tells this story of, how him and his mom got separated, that there had been these human hunters on this glacier, that she had told Koda to hide, and that she, ran off and everything to lure the hunters away from Koda. And Kenai is getting these flashes of, oh, frick. And he's realizing that he's the one that killed Koda's mom. And that she was, just trying to protect her cub. And, Kenai is just filled with horror and guilt, and he runs off. And Koda runs off after him. And, this is where we get the No Way Out song. And Kenai and Koda are just sitting, and Kenai tells him, I have a story I have to tell you, Koda. It's about a man, and it's about a monster. And he tells Koda, basically explains to Koda, I'm the one that killed your mom. She's not coming. I'm the one that did that. And everything. And like Koda is just distraught by this, and he runs off, and Kenai goes looking for him, but then also Kenai needs to get up to the top of the mountain so that way he can talk to Sitka and get himself turned back into a human. But he goes to look for Koda. And Koda is hiding and everything, and then the moose show back up again, and they kind of fell off the mammoth at one point. Like one of them is missing an antler. I was like, how do you total a mammoth? That mountain came out of nowhere. As I said, they're kind of comic relief, but what ends up happening is they're kind of like arguing with each other, and like one of them like looks, goes over to Koda and is like, "You're not my brother anymore. Koda's, smallish bear, as they keep calling him, is my brother now." And it's just like, okay. And Koda's like, "I don't want any more brothers." And then he kind of sits there and he watches as like the two moose kind of like, reform their brotherhood. And it's like one of us just like I you're my, it's like they kind of like, "You never cared about me," like all this stuff. And he's just like, "No, but who's the one that stayed with you all winter when your when your host got frozen in the pond? Who's the one that did all this other stuff and everything?" And like, and he's just like, but and he's like, "But I did that because I love you," type thing. So it's just like, it's like that thing where it's like, it's so hard for men to say that to like their brothers or something. And it's just like, "I did that because I love you." And like, so Koda watches that, and then Koda runs off to go to try to find Kenai. Because he's like, "But, Kenai is my brother." So he runs off to go and find him. And during this moment, we get this time where we see Denahi, who has kind of still been on this hunt and following, Kenai and Koda this entire time. And, he clearly hasn't been sleeping very well, hasn't been taking very good care of himself. There was like a moment where like he had to like try to jump over this canyon to try to get to where Kenai and Koda were, and like all this other stuff that happened where like he had encountered them. And him and Kenai end up kind of fighting on the side of this mountain, where the lights are. And Koda shows up and he stops Denahi. He like jumps on Denahi to stop Denahi from like stabbing Kenai. And then Kenai is goes to protect Koda, to aid Koda out of love, prompting Sitka to appear, and prompting the sky to burst into all the spirits being appearing and everything. And he returns to his human form to make Denahi stop. And then he uses his power to then change Koda back into a human, or change Kenai back into a human. And I kind of refer to these as like kind of, when Kenai gets turned into a bear, it's like reverse Beauty and the Beast. And then now it's just like, the bear being turned into a human again. And Koda watches this, and the three brothers are reunited, and Denahi kind of realizes what had happened, and like he drops the spear that he'd been using the entire time to try to go after Kenai, go after the bear, after realizing that, oh, this whole time it was my brother. He then, Kenai then, in his human form goes over to Koda, and the bear, Koda, he saw what happened, so he knows that this is still Kenai, and Koda and Kenai just goes like, I have to stay with Koda because he doesn't have anyone. And I'm his brother. I can't leave him. And then, Sitka then changes Kenai back into a bear so he can stay with Koda. And so they're reunited, and then we have this moment where Denahi still, Denahi goes and hugs Kenai in his bear form. And he's like, "I kept calling you my little brother." That kind of doesn't work anymore because like Kenai's so much taller than Denahi in the bear form. And what ends up happening is Kenai and Koda and Denahi, Sitka, first what happens is like Koda's mom kind of appears, her spirit appears, and like so Koda and her kind of get to actually say goodbye to each other. And then Kenai and and then Sitka and the mom, go back into being part of the spirits and everything, knowing that the brothers still know that their other brother and then Koda's mom are still kind of watching over them. And then we see like the three brother, Kenai and Koda and Denahi kind of roughhousing with each other a little bit, and then we cut back to the village, and Kenai finally, he lives, ends up living with the rest of the bears. And what they do is he still gets to go back to the village, and like he has his like totem necklace with the bear on it around his neck. And he gets to go, and Denahi helps him, paint his paw, and then put his paw mark up on the wall with all the other handprints. And Koda's like sitting with like the rest of the little kids, like just like watching the whole ceremony and everything, and like Kenai and Denahi kind of are still kind of having fun, and like Koda goes over and like they're still all having fun. And Denahi, as I said, is kind of the one telling the story to the movie is kind of through Denahi's memory, explaining to the rest of these kids what had happened, to like teach them, try to passing on this lesson that he learned when he was young. In regards to the cast, we have Joaquin Phoenix as Kenai. We have Jeffrey Suarez as Koda. We have Rick Moranis as Rut. We have Dave Thomas as Took, who are the two moose, of course. We have Jason Reyes as Denahi. We have D.B. Sweeney as Sitka. We have Joan Copeland as Tanana, and we have Michael Clark Duncan as Tug, who is the wise old grizzly bear. We have Greg Proops, who, if you've seen Whose Line Is It Anyway, he is one of the ones that's on Whose Line Is It Anyway for the original series, and for this one he plays the male lover bear. And it says Polly Perrette as the female lover bear. And if this is the same Polly Perrette I'm thinking of, it's the Polly Perrette that plays Abby Shuto on NCIS. So that's just funny in of itself. A couple of other ones pop up, not too many others. Not really anyone else that I recognize beyond like Frank Welker, who I've mentioned before, has been in so many other animated things as various other animals. For the music, we of course, as I said, they're written by Phil Collins. There's actually an ending theme that is called Look Through My Eyes, which of course plays over the credits and such. The credits kind of have some extended things in it, like they show Kenai and Koda playing with like they have like the like the Hall of Mirrors, or the fun mirror house or whatever, but it's like the glacier, so it's like them having fun with that. And we see like one of the moose does like yoga, so he's doing like yoga with the bears, which is funny. And then there were like these two mountain goats that like Kenai and Koda interacted with, and like at one point like there's like this echo that keeps happening because they keep shouting, and they keep shouting at the echo, and it's just like, oh my god. So it's like we just have funny stuff like that in the credits. But Look Through My Eyes is there over the credits as well. And that's about look at the world through my eyes as opposed to just your eyes, which is, I think, kind of a lesson we could use as an entire world right now. And then of course we had Great Spirits, sung by Tina Turner. We had Welcome, which was sung by Phil Collins, and another variation is Blind Boys of Alabama with Phil Collins and Owen Waters. Oren Waters is another variation for Welcome. And then of course we have the No Way Out, sung by Phil Collins. We have the Transformation, which is sung by the Bulgarian Women's Choir, sung the Transformation song. There's also one of the Transformation variants done by Phil Collins. There's of course also the Great Spirits, sung by Phil Collins as well. There had been not necessarily deleted scenes, but there was like an alternate ending that they had. Had been like, I think there was like a possible alternate ending where like Kenai was gonna stay human, but like maybe they were gonna turn Koda human. But I'm kind of glad what they went where it's like, no, it's Kenai stays with Koda, because like Koda knows this world, and then Kenai can protect him better here. And then we get Brother Bear 2. Yeah. Brother Bear 2 came out in 2006. Basically picks up a couple of months after the end of the first movie. Kenai is now, a cave bear living happily with, Koda and everything. They've awoken from hibernation very recently, so, they're having fun, and they're, gonna go and visit some of their other bear friends. We see like them visit with Tug and everything, and I think Tug mentions that he now has a mate or whatever. And Kenai and Koda are getting along very 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 well. They probably still have moments where it's like one of them gets on the other's nerves, but they're still doing quite well and everything and happy. And Kenai keeps having these memories of like his childhood friends, Naita. I can't remember of his childhood friend, Naita. I don't remember how you pronounce it. Who he gave this like amulet to many years ago. She was from a different tribe or a different village, and they had been friends when they were kids. And when he was a human child, he did this. And we find out that Nita is actually going to be getting married soon, and that she unfortunately, like, they're all getting ready for the wedding day and everything, like her father and her and these other women that are part of the tribe and everything, and like the Shaw woman and everything are all getting ready for this this wedding and everything between like her tribe and this other tribe. And right before the ceremony, like there's this giant crack that happens and like giant like glacier quake or so that happens, and the wedding stops. And so she goes and she talks to their Shaw woman, and she's like, okay, well, let's see what the spirits say. And like this Shaw woman has like so much attitude. It's not even, she's so great. She's voiced by Wanda Sykes, and it's just so funny watching her. And what ends up happening is she explains to Nita, it's Nita, so I apologize if I mispronounce it. It's been a little while since I watched the movie. If I'd watched the movie right away, then I'd be like, oh yeah, I know exactly how to pronounce this, but I don't remember. It's been a little while. But the Shaw woman explains, who insists on being called a Shaw woman instead of a shaman, is like, okay, so here's what the spirits say. You can't marry Atka, who's the guy she's supposed to marry, because you're already bonded / married / whatever to someone else. And it's whoever gave you, like, she's showing her like smoke images or whatever. It's like whoever gave you like this amulet. And she's like, that was from Kenai. And the shaman goes, the bear boy, which implies that the other tribes have heard, the other villages, such, have heard about, Kenai's story, that they've, spread this story about. So they said, it's like, okay, so there's, like a human, they got turned into a bear and everything. So, don't go around killing the bears type of a thing. And, it's like to, spread that lesson. And so they know who Kenai is, and they're like, okay, well, here it is. You're going to have to go and find him, and you guys have to go back to where this had happened, and you have to burn the amulet to like break this bond. And until, before like this time frame or whatever, before like, like whatever, like before the next full moon or whatever, I don't remember exactly what it was, or the new moon or whatever the case was. And you do that, and then you can come back and you can marry the other guy. And so she gives Nita the ability to talk to animals, and then she goes off and she goes to find Kenai. She does end up finding Kenai, and she does find Kenai, and like there's like this scuffle that happens because she sells a spear and everything, and Kenai thinks that he's that she's trying to hurt him or hurt Koda. And he recognizes her, and then she realizes, there's like, oh, well, you can talk to bears and everything. So, we get that whole fun, moment there where it's just like them getting caught up, and like, Kenai explaining to Koda who she is and everything. And I do wonder a little bit if like, in the time frame since Kenai's been turned into a bear, because we don't ever find anything out about like, the three brothers' parents. One of the variations, it was supposed to be that like Denahi was like one of the was their father, and then it was supposed to be Sitka and Kenai, who were the brothers, and then Denahi was like the father figure, or was their father, and then it was going to be like Koda was going to be like an older bear called, I think it was just called Grizz or whatever the case was. It was just going to kind of take over this role of being like a big brother to Kenai. But then they flipped it a bit, and then it was like, okay, no, it's like Kenai's going to have to be the big brother to this little bear. But I do kind of wonder if, like, in this time frame, if like Koda and Kenai have like gone back and visited, Kenai's village a few times. Like, have they gone there and like the other villagers know what he looks like? So it's, he's fine if he shows up and like wanders around and everything. That him and Koda wander around, maybe, Denahi and, him, like, they go fishing for, fishing every now and then. And, like, they bring back a bunch of fish and have like this big fish party or whatever, a big salmon party for them to all eat together. And, like Kenai and Koda are there, or like does like Denahi go out every now and then, and like, the three of them kind of just like hang out and play together or go exploring together. Like, I don't know. I just kind of wonder about that. But Nita explains that, okay, we need to go and take this amulet and take it back to where we had been when we were kids, and we need to burn it because then I can marry this other person. And Kenai is just like, no. It's just like, it's your problem, and it's like just all this stuff that happens, and they have to go on this big, it's kind of like this travel thing again, where they have to, we get more beautiful landscapes and everything of Alaska, for the time frame, and like they have to go up against like these raccoons that like steal stuff from the purse, from like Nita's purse, or Nita's purse, and like they're just, having to deal with all this other stuff. And then one of the things that they have to do is they have to cross this river. And Nita's like, no, let's not cross the river. Let's go like all this like other way around to get to here, as opposed to just cross the river and you're fine. And, she has this fear of drowning because when she was a kid, part of this that ties into like why her and Kenai are kind of bonded is because when they were kids, she almost drowned and like Kenai saved her life. And she just has this hard time with water and everything. And, but Kenai kind of helps her get over this. We had like a musical number at like the beginning of this movie, and then like there's like another musical number in this area, where, it's like her getting over her fear of water and everything by like Kenai helping her. And like Koda's watching this. We have interacted with Rut and Took again, and they actually have had these two female moose that they've kind of come across that they really like, that they're trying to impress, and like Kenai tries to help them and that doesn't go so well. And then Nita and Koda actually help, Nita and Koda actually help, and that actually works a little bit better. But like, it's like the moose, like the girls keep kind of flitting from like one to the other, and it's just kind of funny to watch. And then, it's like they, so they kind of help, because one of the things that happens is, they get to this place where, where they need to be to burn the amulet, and they burn the amulet, and and break this bond and everything. And then, then Nita can go back home, and she does. And Koda actually, looks at the spirits and everything, and he, like kind of, asks his mom in the spirit land to turn Kenai back into a human so that way he can be happy and be with, Nita. So then Kenai, or Koda runs off to the village to retrieve Nita, so that way, and Kenai is told by Toot and Rut that that's where he went, and Kenai, runs after Koda, and Koda, cannot go to the village because they would try to kill him, because even though they know the story about this, this bear that was a human, this human that got turned into a bear, that doesn't mean that that's going to stop this other tribe from killing any other random bear that walks into their home. So Kenai makes it there, and he ends up having to fight against Adka, who is supposed to be, that she's supposed to marry. And he falls off of a cliff into shallow water, where then the spirits come down, and Koda tells Kenai to ask the spirits to change him back to a man, so that way Kenai can be with Nita. And Kenai tells Nita that he can't because he doesn't want to leave Koda. But Nita told Koda earlier in the movie that, when you love someone, once you love someone, they're in your heart forever. And because her mother died when she was a kid, and it's that concept of, no matter how long it's been since you've seen them, once you loved them, they're there. And, that goes for, loved ones that have lost, loved ones that have left, things like that. Once you love them, they're there. That doesn't really help when it comes to, like, the concept of, like, oh, I broke up with you, but I had loved you at one point, so now what do I do? But I'm going more with, like, in the family context of things. And so what ends up happening is they kind of do, like, this, I guess, like, exchange type of a thing. Or, like, Kenai, like, kind of takes Nika, because they still can't understand each other. He takes her hand and puts it over his heart to, like, imply that, it's like that he loves her. And then, Nita is just like, yeah, well, you can't change back into a man, so I will change myself into a bear. And she basically, asks the spirits to change her into a bear. And she walks over and she hugs her father. And then she goes back and then she gets changed into a bear. And then her and Kenai get married. She has very similar coloring to Kenai. And the film ends with, like, them getting married and having this big wedding, and, like, Rut and Took have, like, they each have their female moose. And, like, they're just, having this, this big fun wedding ceremony and everything at Nita's village. And they didn't show if, like, Denahi was there. But, like, I'm assuming that, like, they probably sent word to, like, Kenai's village that, like, hey, Kenai's gonna get married. What? Like, this whole explanation. Yeah, we'll be there. Calm down. And, like, Denahi's like, I gotta go to the wedding. Like, Tanana is like, yeah, go. I have a feeling that, like, Denahi became, like, the new shaman. After everything that happened with Kenai, he maybe started training with Tanana to become a shaman. But, like, so, we get that. We get this huge wedding between the two of them, and, like, they have they have Kenai, of course. There, and way back when we had seen this, one of the flashbacks between the two kids, Kenai had, one of the reasons that they're kind of, I guess, considered bonded is because Kenai had taken, like, he had drawn on the walls, like, this, two stick figures next to each other as, like, friends in the cave where they had to burn the amulet later. And the spirits go and they change it from two human shapes into, like, two bear cubs. And, just to show that. And then, that's where the movie ends. We got some fun songs in the movie. But so the cast was, we had Patrick Dempsey actually now as Kenai, so Dr. McDreamy from Grey's Anatomy. And this is not his only Disney role. He was also in Enchanted, where he plays the main love interest in Enchanted for Giselle. I will probably eventually do a Enchanted review, but I've still got several other things to work my way through first. But, like, he's there, and actually, Kenai is the only voice acting role that Patrick Dempsey and that Joaquin Phoenix have both done. Well, that's the only one that either one of them has done, and it happens to be the same character. We had Jeremy Suarez come back to play Koda. Mandy Moore played Nita, who of course would later, Mandy Moore, of course, years later, would then play Rapunzel in Tangled, 4 years later. We have Wanda Sykes as Inoko, the Shaw woman, for that tribe. Rick Moranis and such came back to play Rut and Took and everything. And then for the music, we had Welcome to This Day, sung by Melissa Etheridge, which was done, which is, like, the first song in the movie. And then we have Feels Like Home, sung by Melissa Etheridge and Josh Kelly, which is, I think, the song that they do to show, like, this bond relationship between Kenai and Naito when they're all traveling together and everything, and when he's helping her overcome her fear of swimming. And then it has It Will Be Me, sung by Melissa Etheridge, which is, I think, like, the end titles of the movie. There had been an alternate ending that they had thought of, that had been where Kenai does become human to be with Nita, and I don't know exactly what happens with Koda in that one, or if it, like, he became human too. But again, it's it's like she chooses to go with him, Kenai made this choice at the end of the first movie to stay with Koda because Koda needs him, and then she makes the same choice to go with them. I don't look at that as like, oh, she chose to go be with him because it's like he's the one that couldn't leave or whatever. It's just like she chose to go be with him because this is also a cub that is not ready to be on its own yet. And I do not know how quickly, I do not remember how quickly bear cubs grow. Because by like this time and everything, because like Kodo is at least over a year old at this point in time, because he remembers like the previous year's salmon run, and then there's the one that it's in the first movie, and then it's been like several months since then. So he's at least over a year old. So I don't know. I don't remember exactly how quickly cubs grow up. How quickly bear cubs, grow up and everything. But I love Brother Bear. I think it's an amazing movie. I love how they did it. I love the music from both movies. I love the stories that they tell. I love the artwork that they did in the movies. We get lots of character development for a lot of the characters, which I very much like. And it's just fun to watch them be around each other and everything. I wouldn't have minded if they did something with like Kingdom Hearts with it, where like Donald and Goofy and Sora have to go to the world where go to like the Brother Bear world, like whatever they want to call it, the Ice Age planet or whatever it is that they have to go to, and they like have to run around there or whatever. But I also I wouldn't have been surprised if that wasn't a big deal, because it's not like it was. I mean, it's not like with Treasure Planet, where they could have very much easily made like Treasure Planet part of Kingdom Hearts. But we'll see what happens with that. The next one, if I remember correctly, the next one should be Meet the Robinsons, which is fully computer animated. I like it. In the whole list of like Disney animated movies, this is where like between Brother Bear and Meet the Robinsons is where like where Chicken Little and Home on the Range are. And I don't like either one of them, so I'm not going to talk about them. So yeah, the next one would be Meet the Robinsons, and then I think it's Bolt, and then after Bolt, I think it's the Princess and the Frog, or the Frog Princess with Tiana. So I finally get to break out my Tiana shirt that I've had for a little while when I get to that. So that's what I have for that. So yeah, it kind of shows a little bit of like adoption, I guess, is a little bit of what they kind of go through with the that sibling bonds and everything, which is always kind of nice to see. So for me and all of my stuffed animal plushies, I still need to get a Pancham plushie for Pokemon. Unfortunately, I haven't found one for a while, but I need to get another one to like finish out my bear plushies, since I got Cubchoo and Teddy Ursa and Stuffle. I need to get them. So that's what I have for this. I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. And bye-bye. You want to know what I did this year? I went on the longest, hardest, most exhausting journey I have ever been on, with the biggest pain in the neck I have ever met. But what do you expect from a little brother?